Good afternoon and welcome to BizTech's Asian Midday Market Watch. We have Charu Chanana, the market strategist from Saxo Markets Singapore, as our guest today. Charu, as always, great to have you on the show again.
Thank you, Brian, for having me. It's a pleasure.
Now, before we get your insights, Charu, we're going to take a look at and see how crypto markets have performed and also how regional stock markets are performing. Now, we start with crypto markets. Bitcoin is at 19,603. It's up 2.65%. Ethereum is at 1,329.14. It's up 3.13%. Now, looking across the regional stock markets, first of all, markets in mainland China and Hong Kong are closed for a holiday. So we've got the SGX, which is up 0.77%. And we have then, just give me a second, my numbers haven't come up yet. We've got the KLCI, which is up 0.69%. We have the ASX All Ordinaries, which is up sharply 3.57%. The Nikkei is up 2.82%. And rounding up the numbers, we've got the Kospi, which is up 2.56%. Charu, what's your view on how markets have performed this morning, in particular the sharp rise in the ASX All Ordinaries and the Nikkei?
Yeah, I think there's some bit of it is, expectations of an early Fed pivot. And we saw a reaction of that in the overnight markets in the US after the ISM manufacturing data disappointed for the US. And then, in continuation with that story this morning in the Asian hours, we had the Reserve Bank of Australia delivering a smaller hike of 25 basis points as was expected against, 50 basis points. So I think overall there's that sense that central bank hawkishness may be peaking into this quarter, and that's obviously sending a positive signal to equity markets.
Now, the big news, of course, is also the U-turn in the UK. Tell us about that and what are the implications for markets?
Yeah, I think a pretty funny situation there, since last week. Now, of course, yesterday they have announced the rollback of their fiscal policy of the tax cut that they had announced last week. So, of course, that is a done deal, but the confidence, I think, has been lost. And the message, in terms of rolling back this policy has been pretty mixed as well, because clearly it is because of political pressure. It is because of pressure from some of the international authorities, such as the IMF or the S&P, kind of warning the UK of a downgrade. And it is not really signaling the concerns that the market has in terms of it being an unfunded austerity measure, really. And so, my sense is that I think there's lack of conviction in that kind of a reversal. And as we approach their medium-term fiscal strategy meeting, probably sometime this month, we could get some more of these policies. To be really honest, I think investors have lost confidence in the UK administration at this point, which is very critical when there is a recession coming. The Bank of England has already guided for a 5-quarter recession starting, I think, Q4. That is the current quarter. You have a double-digit inflation. You have an energy crisis. So if you don't have a credible government policy there, it is going to be, I think, still spell some more pain for UK assets in the coming weeks.
Then how does that look like for the pound moving forward in the coming weeks?
So when you look at sterling dollar, of course, there were a lot of calls last week about it reaching parity. Well, I do think that this reversal has sent a clear message that the government will probably not let it roll back to parity so quickly. So while like I said, I do see further pressure for UK assets, so there will be possibly more downside for the sterling because, the expectations for Bank of England to hike rates is set too high. We are still looking at an over 100 basis points of rate hike for the November 3 meeting. And if they do deliver that as well, I mean, you still have those economic concerns which will get compounded. And, inflation is, of course, not looking like the picture will get any positive that side as well with the energy problems raging on. So, I mean, I do think that there's more downside, although I think it will be a little bit more orderly.
Now, Charu, looking ahead to oil and gold, these are commodities that have been yo-yoing for, but mostly on the upside until very recently. What's your view on that in the near term?
Yeah, I think that's one key question that I get asked a lot, and of course, oil has been it's been a pretty difficult quarter for energy markets in particular. But if you look at the structural side of things, I think you and I have talked about this previously, Brian. That we do think there's this massive underinvestment in the energy space, and in the medium term, that will be the focus, and that will mean higher oil prices. But if you look at it, in a very near-term horizon as well, I think the focus has shifted a little bit away from the demand concerns to the supply issue, especially with this OPEC plus production cut, which is expected to be announced tomorrow. So even if that goes through, I mean it's going to be a little bit more difficult for the OPEC plus members because they're already producing below capacity. But beyond this OPEC plus as well, I think there are a lot of supply measures to be mindful of, such as US sanctions on Iran, US kind of pausing its strategic reserves releases. Then of course we have Russian sanctions and the EU kind of looking at a price cap as well. So all of those do reflect that we could see a bottom in oil somewhere close right now. And also in terms of gold, there's been this battle going on in yield versus inflation, because real yields have been low. So the gold has had a tough time to kind of really gain a solid momentum. But it has also, it has been in range. It hasn't really seen a lot of downside as well. So I think the critical area to watch will be the 1700 level. This morning I saw gold was testing that level. And I think, potentially as yields top out, 10-year yield maybe around 4.25%. Once we see the peak there, I think that will be the point for gold to break out higher as well.
Charu, as always, thank you very much for your insights. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Ryan.
Now, we've been speaking to Charu Chanana, the market strategist from Saxo Markets Singapore, on BizTech's Asian Midday Market Watch. I'm Brian Fernandez. This video and podcast will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our social media platforms. It'll also be on our syndication partners, TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thank you very much for tuning in.